Hello to the camera and to the ether. I've realized that it's an easy thing to have a good life. It's not easy, per se, it's simple. I think the good life is populated with some degree of challenge, some degree of happiness that you derive from that challenge, people around you that care about you and perhaps strive for that same challenge in life. And that's pretty much it. It's the community part of it, and it's the chaos that's birthed out of trying to push yourself, which is the challenge part of it. And I think if you've got those two things fulfilled, life is relatively simple to navigate. And you got to be grateful for that. I'm very grateful for that. But I know that because I have this amazing starting point, I have to strive for greater heights. And that I become cannot become satisfied with what I have. It's too little. Too much of it is fickle in the sense that it can be taken away from me in an instant. And it's not even the it's not even what I can build externally, it's about all of the things that I can build in my own character in the pursuit of such lofty external goals. It's that I become I become stronger and stronger the more I seek from the world. Or rather, I become stronger and stronger the more I pursue from the world rather than simply seek it. I pursue it. And there's concentrated effort towards it. And that effort pays off not only in the form of the fruit that I receive from the world itself, but rather who I become in the process. I become someone who can do the same thing all the more faster. I become someone who can I become someone who's worthy of the thing that I'm pursuing. And I think often it's not the thing itself that we pursue, it's that elevation of self-worth. Because we know deep down that if we are striving to be better, then we know that we can be better, and that's why we do. That there is some part of us that's dissatisfied with the way that we conduct ourselves and instead expects greater things of us because it knows that we are capable of it. I'm not so sure if I'm making sense to you, but the idea is that you do for the process of becoming as well. You pursue for the process of becoming. At the end of the day, I'm not saying that, don't pursue your external fruits for your reward. No, be compensated fairly. Reach for that fruit. But realize that the greatest fruit of all is the strength that you grew in that process. And that strength guarantees that you can always reach for a greater fruit. In the sense that the person that you have built in the process of your pursuit allows you to engage in greater and greater pursuits. And that person you build is the person who you can be. It's the ideal that we're forever destined to chase. It's Sisyphus' myth, but not so not so pessimistic. It's Sisyphus' myth, but as I think Camus says, one must imagine Sisyphus enjoying it. Because it is our destiny. It is our destiny to pursue things that are greater than us. And find this ephemeral sense of meaning that was never there in the first place. But that's the funny thing about meaning, right? It's the funny thing about words. These are sounds I'm speaking into the environment, and somehow you understand them. They were never there to begin with, but you can make sense of them. And they're received and they fade away. And like that sound, our pursuits too are there, become, and then fade away. That is not to say don't speak at all or don't pursue at all, that become an ascetic. No. I think I've touched on this before, that even to become an ascetic, you must first have something worthy of that sacrifice. You must first get, and then say, it was all about the process of getting, not what I got itself, and then give it away. I'm currently in the process of get. And I love it. I love the fact that it's brutal. I love the fact that it challenges me. I love the fact that it tires me. I love the fact that maybe not everybody would find this interesting. There's some, call it sick if you may, but there's some sick sense of pleasure I derive from knowing that it takes a special kind of human being to endure this kind of suffering. And I may be glorifying myself a bit too much, or rather, I think I'm glorifying myself all too much, because I don't endure much suffering. Just I have a regular job. I have my streaming and the occasional writing. But I know that I must endure more suffering, because that's where I find the most meaning. I am not one to be satisfied with life that's spent in the middle. So if I must go to the extremes, then I must be willing to tolerate the extremes of pain as well. If I must feel the true ecstasy of this earth, then I must tolerate the deepest, darkest despair. But neither are permanent states. Both are simply passing. Both are continuous loops that follow each other. And I'd much rather front load the pain and then take the pleasure, rather than take pleasure on pain's credit. Because I think it's far better and far easier for the mind to navigate when you choose to suffer now instead of suffering later and enjoying now. I think it's the analogy of Dante's Inferno too, that to go to heaven first you must go through hell. And I think in Dante's Inferno, those who are bound to hell first go through heaven as well. So I think there's a reason for that. When you go through either of the states of the extreme, it makes you all the more sensitive to the other side. You're more likely to appreciate water when you're thirsty. And you're more likely to feel the pain of thirst when you've known satiety. So if you walk into hell after having been to heaven, hell feels all the more worse. But if you walk into heaven after being through hell, heaven feels all the better. So I understand that there's no point, that each narrative is its own construction, is the construction of the actor that's involved. And that actor has decisions to make. And for me, I see that the far easier decision is to suffer now so that my fruits seem even sweeter. Not once again, it's philosophy. I am not suffering. I genuinely am not suffering enough. I've got to be doing a lot more. Or rather, in the things that I'm already doing, I've got to be putting in a lot more effort. That realization is a step, but that's a step that I've taken a long time ago. Now comes the time for the next step. And the time has been coming quite a while from how I've been describing, but well, process is change, and change is slow. The mind is already there, or rather, how do I say it? The part of the mind that's in charge is already there. The part of the mind that frolics around is being guided there. And I think the idea is that once you realize that this is your life's calling and that you must endure suffering if you wish to leave any kind of legacy, if not for others, if for only for yourself, at the end of your life, on your deathbed, that you can say with some degree of satisfaction that you experienced all that you wanted to. And if you can say that with satisfaction, then I think you've won in life. Then you've left a legacy, because you go out with the utmost respect of yourself. And I think the first person that you should demand respect from is not others, it's not the world, it's yourself. And self-respect comes from doing the things that you said you would do. Self-respect comes from keeping your own word to yourself. Self-respect comes from saying, if I say I'm going to wake up at 7 in the morning, then I wake up at 7 in the morning. For then I can trust myself, and if I can trust myself, then I can respect myself. There is no respect in a place where you cannot trust. Or rather, there's no meaningful respect in a place where you cannot trust. And love too is the same. So all trickles down to being able to trust yourself. Now it's always a leap. Trust is always a leap. But it shouldn't be a gamble. It should be It shouldn't be, oh my God, what am I going to do tomorrow? or rather, I know what I have to do, but what am I going to do? But instead, it should be, I know what I have to do, but what small deviations I can take? What things I can do to make my journey all the more worthwhile? Vague as it is, I've found that the more you think about this, the vaguer it gets. And perhaps it is so by design. See, there are few things that you know for sure. Know for sure. They're almost like guardrails in your life that keep you from veering too off track. And it is through experience that you quantify these guardrails. But that's not to say that you go beyond what is acceptable for you. It's not to say that you don't recognize that there are forces in your head far beyond your control that are as old as living things themselves. That there are drives in you that trick you into thinking that these thoughts are your own. So it's often our exploration must come to an end where it's no longer fueled by the adventurer but some demon that's latched onto him. I hope I'm making sense so far. The idea is that you're the adventurer of your own life, and whatever part of you has hijacked you is the demon. And it's very hard for you to recognize that. For all we know, or rather for all I know, I could be the figment of imagination of someone who's trying to go through the same process. In the sense that I'm the figment of imagination of someone who's going through the process of figuring out what the meaning of life is. But how does it matter to me? I may be a figment of imagination, but I'm as real as I feel I am. And if I think I am real, I think that's more than enough proof. Not to have veered off topic, but the idea is that you can't stray too much away from your path. Now understand that enjoyment does not come from hedonistic pleasures. It does not. Because there's this unfulfilled bit of you at the end of the day that pries away at you. There's something so deeply fulfilling about knowing that you did your absolute best, knowing that you suffered, knowing that you grew because of your suffering. It's almost like water tastes like nectar to the parched throat, and that same taste you'll never get it no matter how many gallons of it you drink when you're not thirsty. So it's almost like you starve yourself in order to have earned a good meal, or you gather the food yourself and work until you do, you toil until you do, you develop a relationship with the fruit of your labor through your labor. And it becomes an extension of you. It is perhaps that extension that gives us that fulfillment. That you can look at something and say that, yes, I made this. And even if nobody were around, I think that process of having made something, having created something, gives so much more fulfillment than to simply find that thing and seek pleasure from it. So the idea then is to know that yes, you can always find pleasure anytime that you decide to. But there's something so much sweeter about working for it. There's something so much sweeter about engaging in the process of creating it and then indulging. So I must engage in this process of creation now. I must create the life that I wish to enjoy. I must create it with my effort. I must create it with my own two hands. With the grace of the universe. I must create it. And in creating it, I find even more joy from its enjoyment. I hope that makes sense to you. Anyways, good night to you, to the camera and to the ether. If I was going to watch this.